that a lot lies on the recruitment process, which is why it is pivotal for hiring to be made on well-informed decisions based on skill and expertise. Essentially, unbiased, well-researched, and fast because, well, time is money. However, this process could be enormously taxing, not to mention lengthy, taking up days and even months. You can now say goodbye to all your hiring woes with SpeedHire, a smart, savvy, and swift way to assess talent for your organization. Assess faster, better, together. All talent acquisition needs taken care of in just one click. Here's a truly dynamic, AI-powered comprehensive assessment platform to make your hiring process smoother. SpeedHire merges the potency of 3 powerful platforms into one. SpeedHire assesses candidates with AI-powered platform. SpeedHire Live conduct remote interviews, even code tests. SpeedHire Advanced role-based assessment simplified. SpeedHire assess multiple candidates across geographies with just a click. Automated assessment of multiple coding assignments in one go. Saves time and effort. Improve hiring ROI. Unbiased hiring. Build winning technology teams with unbiased insights, not instincts. SpeedHire is based on artificial intelligence. Offers assessment in 54 languages. Vast library of 15,000 plus tech questions for assessment. SpeedHire Live. Assess tech skills in real-time coding environment. Built developer-friendly code editor. Works with Google Calendar to notify the recruiters and candidates about relevant dates. Online chat feature to connect the interviewer and interviewee. SpeedHire Advanced. Role-based assessment. Simplify your talent search for various roles. 4 defined roles. Just pick the role that you are seeking. Advanced algorithm will help you find the right candidate from your own database and remove those who don't fit your hiring criterion. Revolutionize your hiring process. Start your free trial today. Visit our social media handles or connect with us on marketing@speedhire.com and corporate care@speedhire.com.
Great. So technical hiring is all about building great teams to develop great products and services. In the new normal, remote talent assessment has become a major way to scout skilled talent, especially for the tech roles where the tech quotient defines the success or doom of a prospect. Each role has its own unique set of required skills and different levels of seniority where entirely different sets of requirements are there. Those distinctions paired with constantly changing technologies makes it challenging to nail down a repeatable, sustainable hiring process. But how do organizations ensure to recruit the right talent? How do HR and tech leaders work on strategies and processes for a fair technical assessment? All this and much more will be over the table while our esteemed panelists from the tech fraternity talk about and share their valuable insights today. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mohan S. Kote, Principal Consultant, ATCS Inclusive. Mohan Kote is the Client Partner Engagement Lead at ATCS with over 17 plus years of IT experience. He is known to handle key mark accounts for ATCS. He supports clients in managed services, application architecture, cloud modernization, big data analytics, business development, KPI, and reporting. During the quarantine, Mohan mastered his cooking skills, growing indoor plants, and playing tennis picked up the 4th grade math and ELA skills. The second panelist, Saqib Khan, Executive Director, Delivery, Collabora Inclusive. Saqib has 14 years of experience working with Collabora, a global total talent solutions focusing on cloud, data, AI, engineering, and delivering these services through staff augmentation, IT services, custom training solutions, and many more. In his role as Executive Director, he is responsible for building a strong recruiting and delivery team that can help deliver these services and also designing and implementing multiple strategic initiatives. Our third panelist, Vipul Valamji, Senior Engineering Talent Leader, Altimetric. Vipul comes with 2 decades of industry experience across multiple technology and domain. He strongly believes that we all live in a digitally connected society, which is driven by human interactions and connection. People first has been the key to his success and believes that a company's most precious investment is its employees. Our fourth panelist here, Jagat Jiturk, Head of Product, Tagging and SpeedHire from the Times Internet Limited. Jagat has 11 plus years of experience, of which he has spent 5 years in Times Internet. In his current role as a product lead for Tagging, he works on building the Tagging community of close to 4 million techies and enterprise tech assessment solutions to assist companies hire better developers. Before this, he has worked on a couple of startups in the e-commerce and consulting spaces, wearing multiple hats, including tech and business leads. So without taking much time, I would just request my panelists to give us an opening remarks. Can we just quickly start with Sakib?
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Sukriti, for a brief introduction. Excited to be part of this event today. I'm based out of Charlotte, North Carolina. I've been part of this IT services industry for past 14 years. And, my job, basic core job is obviously managing a team that is day in and day out, identifying the right talent for our customers. So I'm at the heart of everything that we are trying to discuss, and especially with the advent of technology and post-COVID, remote and virtual working has become a norm. It's increasingly challenging to really identify the right talent. And in fact, technology was already making a lot of advancements in past 3-4 years. And I think it has only accelerated in the last 9 months to make sure that, hiring decisions are possible even virtually.
Right. Thanks, Akib. Mohan, can we move to you and have your opening remarks, please?
Sure. Hey, thanks, Sukriti, for the introduction. Mohan Gote. I'm based out of Atlanta, Georgia, and as Sukriti mentioned, I have over 17 years of experience in managing clients. So I'm mainly on the delivery side, but I'm also responsible for hiring the right talent, especially the technical talent here in the US and also globally, which we work with India as well. And yes, as COVID has hit us hard, we had the initial downs, and now it's coming back up. But I think everybody is now realizing that technical work can be done remotely, and that's going to be the new norm. And I think we are prepared for that. And getting the right people is actually going to be the most important thing, because you will not interact with them on a face-to-face basis regularly. So the way I think communication is going to be the key. So getting into finding the right talent is going to be further more challenging as well as interesting. And I think we are looking forward for the new challenge, and we are preparing ourselves locally as well as globally on how to use the right platform, how to make recruitment seamless and strategic, and I'm looking forward for the discussion.
Thank you so much. Vipul, we'll move to you.
Yeah, thank you, Sukriti. And I'd like to first thank Sakib, Mohan, and Jagdeep to be part of this conversation, because I'm really looking forward for this next 1 hour, where we're going to talk about a lot of topics and discussions around talent, hiring, and in this new age of digitalization. Couple of things which are very close to my heart, and it's part of any organization, is people, right? Meaning we have to invest, and we have to invest in the right kind of people. And how do you invest? How do you bring in these talent into your organization? Is a very on the outlook looks simple. You go take a couple of interviews, you understand the engineer, you understand the talent, hire. But it's not that simple, right? Every step has its own intricacies. Every stage has its own detailing and conscious effort from an organization that has to be done. We at Altimetric, I'm part of Altimetric for last 3 years and over 2 decades of experience across multiple product and service related organizations. We in this company are very clear that we are investing in these people, and that's our asset, right? The product that we build, the service that we provide is a byproduct of the investment that you have made on these people. And if we don't do the right process of bringing these people in, if we don't give them the right experience of bringing going through that journey, right? It's not only a company investing that time, we also look at how does these people spend that few hours or few days going through the cycle of getting interviewed, right? That is also very important, because if you give them that green channel path or a path which feels very comfortable, the probability of the person joining and being really good is very high. So I'll stop here and back to you, Sukriti, on that note.
True, true, true. Very well said, Vipul. Jagat, will move to you, and may I have an opening remark from you?
Thanks, Sukriti. Pretty excited to be part of this conversation. Uh, I look after the enterprise assessment bit of TechGate. So we help a lot of companies take data-driven decision support by doing tech assessment. So in the COVID times, I have seen companies transition initially struggling with business continuity, figuring out their business continuity, then moving on to figure out how do they keep their hiring uh, continuity in place, because the norms had changed. You're not meeting people face to face. So how do you remotely assess people? How do you take remote interviews objectively? And then how do you onboard them without actually meeting them face to face? So that's a new norm that we are seeing, and a lot of companies have uh, kind of accepted and oriented themselves to the new norms. Uh, there's a lot of innovation which is happening in the hiring and the hiring tech space. Thanks to COVID, it has accelerated. There's a lot of demand side need which has come up, mostly with respect to how do you hire the right talent, because there are different dimensions to hiring, right? You have the tech aspect, some of which can be automated with the technologies that we have, and there's the soft skill aspect, right? Uh, is this a person who's the right fit for my team? Does he have the traits which are a right fit for my company? So those are dimensions that companies are looking to assess on at scale remotely. So we'll discuss many of those aspects as we go through the conversation. I think it's going to be a very exciting next 1 hour conversation. Thanks, Sukriti.
First of all, I would like to thank each one of you for being a part of this session. And I look forward to a super exciting discussion and hope that we draw some great insights from the discussion that we're looking forward to. As we speak, we are live on SpeedHire and TechGeek pages of Facebook and YouTube. Now let's just kickstart the conversation. So the future of work has already arrived for a large majority of the white collar workforce. And according to the latest data from the World Economic Forum, which reveals that 84% of employers are all set to rapidly digitalize their working processes, including a significant expansion of remote work, with the potential to move 44% of their workforce to operate absolutely remotely. With radical shifts in business operating principles, the approach of work, the economic crisis, the roles to critical business success, everything is going to change. And hiring strategies would need to align with this change and prioritize and support with the targeted processes of intervention in place. So I'm like really keen to hear a little bit from each one of you that how have you defined your roles as tech sources, and maybe share some insights into the nature of your tech resourcing. Vipul, we'd like to kickstart from you.
Sure. Thank you, Sukriti. Yeah. So I was very happy to see the SpeedHire demo which ran, right? Because that's something which is very important, right? How do you have a standardized format, and how do you have an assessment which is very standard in an organization that you don't have to reinvent for every job profile? And luckily for me and the organization, we have been following a pattern or a product, internal product, we call it as Playground. And it's very simple in terms of how do you orchestrate the end-to-end journey of a candidate through the interview process, right? So what we have is a tech assessment coding challenge So tech assessment is mostly a multiple choice question, and there's a coding challenge. Depending on the levels, we have a pair programming, or it's a coding submitted based on a automated test suite which runs on the code to validate whether the code has done its intended activity. That is followed by a mini project. This is pre-COVID. We used to have this teams of people walk in, and then we used to give them a mini project. So 4-5 people used to huddle together, build the product. We also made them sell the product to us. So we are looking at a candidate who builds something and has the conviction that they have built it right to sell it to us also, right? But post-COVID, we have sort of shifted the gears. Instead of a collective project from multiple people, you are giving them individual projects which they do it remote, and come and do the same thing over a video conferencing. That's the only shift, but then the project is there. People build a very small project, walk through the details of it. Then we follow it with a very simple whiteboarding, right? And all through this process, our intention is very clear, except for the first MCQ, which we call it as an elimination cycle. Everything else is a selection cycle. We post the first stage, want to hire the person, and it's the prerogative of the candidate to exit the cycle, not from us. We will give all possible help to candidate to see if the candidate can become successful. The reason we put that sort of a mindset is, at a job, at a day in day out activity, the candidate is not sitting in an ivory tower and building something, right? That engineer is constantly talking to his peer. That engineer is constantly actually doing a Stack Overflow search or a Google search and finding a snippet of code and adding it into his production code. So that's the ecosystem that engineer is working on. Then why do we need to build an assessment platform which is built in an ivory tower, right? Assessment platform need to also find out whether this candidate or an engineer can do the same thing, can collaborate, can the engineer work in an ecosystem where there will be people who will have their own opinions and still try to solve the problem. So that's been one of the successes for us. And yeah, so in nutshell, we have an MCQ coding round, a project followed by a whiteboarding, and all through this cycle we coach the engineer. We do have dedicated coaches as our own employees who act as coaches. We don't call them interviewers except for the first round. As I said, they coach this engineer or candidate to see if that candidate can become an employee, right? So that's a very important role. In fact, to become a coach also, we have a process in our organization that not everyone can become a coach. We groom them to become a coach. And as I said, we are bringing in these people from an different world into the world of Altimetric, and we want to make sure that they fit, and we want to make sure that we create the culture of let's work together to become successful. Then we are putting, it's not a gating process for me, if I have to put it in a nutshell.
Wonderful. So you're actually trying to, collaborate with everyone and take everyone along in this ecosystem that you've built. Wonderful. Sakib, we would move to you, and we would like to understand from you that what are the tech resources and what are your plans in your organization that you're, putting into the streamline.
Sure. And most of the hiring that we do as a company is for actually our end clients, because those are the clients that are having those projects. And I would say that obviously post-COVID, as I said in my opening remark, it has only accelerated, but even previously, because most of the hiring is now happening in a digital space, every client is going through that digital transformation journey. Increasingly, it was very important to reduce the cycle times, right? And even before COVID, we were having these dialogues with our customer to provide them with custom built solutions, whether it's in terms of AI assessments. I think multiple choice question and coding is something people already touched based on, but how do you ensure that you basically reduce the cycle time? How do you avoid a hiring manager or their team doing 5 or 6 rounds of interviews versus you can give a complete package to the candidate, to the hiring manager, which could include video, like a video interview instead of just a resume, right? Where a candidate can talk about themselves for 3 to 5 minutes, right? That can easily eliminate even judging a communication skill of a candidate, right? Where a candidate is able to express what their strengths are and what are the key areas, and they can briefly describe what projects they have worked on. Then they can move to the technical assessment round where based on the client requirement, there can be customized training assessments that can be built. And there are different tools that we are using. There are certain internal AI integrated tools that we have built ourselves, as well as there are certain tools from outside which are easily available, like HireView, which can easily look at an algorithm of the words and the choice of the words the candidate is using, whether they will fit in a particular company's culture or environment or not. And that software is much better versus removing that manual intervention from a recruiter, where you can be subjective in your evaluation. Whereas this AI based algorithm tool can really give you the right guidance that whether this candidate, with the choice of words they have used, the camera that they have used, and how many times they are kind of their body language and everything it depicts to show whether this candidate will fit in their environment or not. Apart from this, I think it has become more and more important with remote working, is that we seek to understand what the hiring manager is looking for. Because I can tell you, a lot of times the job descriptions that the hiring managers write, they would easily go to a Glassdoor or on the Google and type up a job description, to be honest with you. That is the typical tendency that any hiring manager has. Nobody takes that time to really craft a proper job description. In fact, there are software tools now which you can use to craft a proper job description that can eliminate certain words which could lead to bias, right? Like very competitive and determined. Sometimes you tend to be biased towards a certain gender, right? Or being collaborative and cooperative, you can be tend to be biased towards certain gender. So there are software programming tools that hiring managers can use now to really craft their job description to make it more neutral and appealing to the right audience that it is catering to. And that way it removes a lot of bias in your hiring process as well.
Sakib, just a quick follow-up onto what you just mentioned, that you just talked about the qualitative analysis of a candidate, right? Whether, through video calls, you'll be able to just evaluate that person is, going to fit into the ambience of the organization or not, and things like that. So do you think that, a technical assessment tool, especially when it comes to the qualitative part, is like not biased and gives you a fair evaluation? What's your
It
take
does
onto that?
to an extent, because you have a proper structured approach to it versus, a lot of time what happens is hiring managers tend to have a lot of unconscious bias that exists. First of all, it's very important to understand what those unconscious bias are, right? A lot of times we have ability to say my gut feeling says this person is the right candidate, right? So it's very important to give a likability score also during the interview process, right? Like if you have 10 parameters you are judging the candidate on, give one parameter as a likability, and then maybe rate the candidate 9 on 10 if you like him, and maybe other candidate could be 7 on 10 or 6 on 10 based on your likability. And then if you do the comprehensive evaluation of judging them on all those parameters, you can still arrive at the right fit. And some of these software tools and technologies can eliminate those human biases that could be existing. So it's not just qualitative, even from a quantitative perspective, there are coding assessments. If you also wish to hire somebody at a senior level or a executive management level, then you have ability to evaluate their work samples, or you can give them a scenario of your work environment and ask them to provide a solution to it, right? Or come and present that how are they going to come and do this in their environment, right? So there are a lot of things that you can use to really make sure that you can negate the in-person need to really evaluate a certain candidate.
All right. So basically, it's all about maintaining the balance between the qualitative analysis and the quantitative analysis that we have through assessment tools, right? Mohan, we'd move to you, and I would like you to add your inputs here and tell me about your tech resources that you have in ATCS.
Yes. So for me, it's kind of a mix of recruiting to the clients, or as well as recruiting for our own projects. So since we are in both models, I think the most important thing I'm going to talk about the first point where we have to recruit for the client, where we are doing staff augmentation. I think the most important thing is to understand the requirement. As Sakib rightly said, because sometimes they just write 3 lines. They're saying that they want they want a project manager, and then once you start questioning them, they say, oh no, I forgot to mention they they need to be Scrum certified, they need to be, project PMP certified. So these kind of things, we make sure that we understand that the detailed requirements, and then we start the process from our side. And again, based on different kinds of requirements, I think if it's technical, we also have some sample programs that has been created by our own tech leads, and it basically checks whether and based on the experience, it checks whether this person can be is good at programming, is good at not just programming, whether he understands the whole SDLC, whether he understands Agile, whether he understands how to branch, how to do a Git branching, when you're branching the code. So these kind of things are evaluated, and we don't have like a tool yet to manage especially the lateral hires, but we make sure that we use these kind of samples, and we go across, and when they talk about their projects and their roles and responsibilities, we make sure that they really talk about their responsibilities, not just, hey, somebody has done this and I only integrated this part. So we want to understand whether they understand the big picture or not. I think that big picture and making sure that they can contribute at different level, like how even people said, like, if I'm good at programming, but if I'm not able to articulate what I've done very well, then that means that there's a gap missing there. So, and since we are in the US at the heart of representing ATCS and the client, we want to make sure that the guy is able to communicate that, and those are the key aspects that we look for when we do hiring for staff augmentation. But for our internal hires, we have a tool where we do technical assessment, and this technical assessment is, again, there is the sample questions are also, some custom questions are also fed by our own developers, just to keep it more intriguing and challenging. And then this is all proctored. So this way, if somebody is writing a test or taking a test, we're making sure that they're focused and all those aspects. And again, we'll talk about AI. It was great what I saw as the introduction, the video where everything is driven by AI. That's where everything is going, I think. But once that is cleared, I think we then talk to the candidate, and then the way we avoid the bias is obviously, if somebody is extrovert, he's able to communicate really well. Sometimes we might get carried away. So we make sure that we touch upon all the requirements, and again, there could be there could be something that could be missed, but in our case, when we hire, we basically look for their technical skills, and then we look at their team skills, and then once we feel like we're confident, we go ahead and hire them. And most important thing is obviously the culture, the ATCS culture. We want to make sure that they fit into our culture, and that is a hard thing to find out. So we generally do have a probation, or we coach them about what are we trying to build, how are we trying to build a cathedral, right? What is ATCS all about? So all that kind of coaching is done in the initial assimilation, and we watch them for first 3 months. We have mentors, we have buddies, we assign all of them, and we make sure that as long as they come into the company, they should be happy, they should be satisfied, they should have good understanding of who we are. So we make sure that process is clean. So that's and then I'll touch upon when we talk about global, how we do it in India. So I would like to stop this here so that we can discuss further.
Sure, Jagat, we would like to add your experience and your fundamentals of since we have SpeedHire, of course. I am sure that you will have a different prospects to share with us here in terms of how important it is to actually quantify and evaluate the skills of a candidate. And since all of us are working remotely, we had a discussion earlier also wherein a lot of leaders and our experts spoke about that how remote working has entirely changed the way we are working. So Jagat, I would like you to add your valuable insights here, please.
So Saqib touched on human bias. People are what their experiences are, and people will have biases because of the experiences that they have had. That cannot be eliminated. So when they are looking at someone and evaluating him for hiring, they are looking at him with that lens. So they have people have a certain perception that people from certain colleges are good, having a certain kind of background are good. So we cannot do away with those lenses. When you're hiring a person in technology, there are two dimensions to it. As I said in my opening remark, that's the soft skill bit. Is the person a right fit for my company? Does the person has the tech skill set which is needed to do justice to this role? So these are the two dimensions. The first part is something which can be automated with the technologies that we have. The second part is something that in a sense there are platforms which will help you define the persona, and also they will also tell you that if you want a Java developer who's at a 6 to 7 years of experience in your company, this is the kind of persona that you should be looking at. But you'd still need a person to meet, to speak to him, evaluate, and look at whether he's a fitment for the company. The other bit, the technical bit, is more or less sorted. You can create a test paper which is the same for everyone. At scale, you can let people take the test, and it gives you a scaled ranking of everyone. So you have objectively defined who's good and who's not good on the parameters and the benchmarks that you have set. So you don't need a line managers to be evaluating that. To a certain extent, you still need a line manager to look at the depth of knowledge that he has, because the assessments can do so much, right? You do an MCQ and then follow it by a coding round. There is only a certain bit of skills that they are evaluating. What the companies are also looking at now are scenario based questions, in which you give them a scenario and they come out with a solution. But when we look at the tech assessment bit, and everyone is going through the same set of assessment, a lot of those biases are are minimized, because it's standardized, everyone knows what their score is, and its objective cannot be refuted. So I think a platform based approach is going to help us eliminate a lot of those biases. On the soft skill bit, people are trying to given that everyone is working remotely, people are trying to figure out solutions on how good this person is on the software aspect. To give you an example, we have had feature requests from companies. Things like, when the person is giving the test, what is the confidence level? Is that something that you can capture their face and figure out? What is the confidence with which he has given the image? What is the emotional state in which he is giving the test? Is he happy? Is he stressed out? What is the emotional state? Those are things that people are looking for from a solution perspective. Uh, so I think technology is going to be a solution for some of the aspects that we are looking for. For some of the other aspects, it will take time for technology to get there, and these will be tools which would help someone take the decision. These will help a human take a decision. They are not going to decide for you for some time.
Right. So I will just move to my next question, Jagat, which is actually, very interestingly brings down to the hiring portion, of course. So, the COVID scenario, which was, in India, especially, it's a global situation right now. And in India, the whole impact started off from February and or March, I should say. So, during the time, a lot of job losses, of course, a lot of recession had, but there is a buzz right now of a lot of hiring in the IT market. So while the HR managers have been saying that the productivity has increased tremendously, what are the core competencies that you as leaders look for while recruiting a programmer or software engineer remotely? I should say. So we would like to start with Mohan here.
So yeah, so I think programming is the key aspect for any role, especially on the technical on the technical side. So let's say you're looking to hire a lateral, and as as digitization and modernization has become a new norm, and everybody is trying to migrate from their legacy to their new journey. We especially look for resources who have exposure to cloud tools and technologies. So let's say, for example, I'm looking at a Java application programmer, right? So we'll still have to check their fundamentals about Java. So what we typically do is, we do a round of core Java itself, because if I'm interviewing, I start with the object class in Java. That's like the core fundamental class. How do you use that? How do you use multi-threading? How do you use reflection? So core fundamentals is still the key. And if the fundamentals are strong, I think you get a good feel that, okay, this is, we are going the right direction. I think fundamentals testing is really important for me. And then go to the next layer where there is Spring and these new frameworks that are helpful for cloud migration. We go into Spring Boot, and all these kind of concepts, and how can they do domain-driven design, microservices and things like that. So again, you cannot expect everything based on the role. Let's say you're looking at an architect, then you look for wider range of skill sets. If you're looking for a senior developer, you look for especially the fundamentals, as well as exposure to cloud and the latest like containerization, and everything is code now. Even the whole platform could be built as code. So, and the most important transformation that I have seen is the DevOps, right? Previously, there was a separate operations team. You used to hand over your code to them and they would deploy. But with the advancement of the technology, the whole operations can be also done by the developer. So we would look at some of the core skills, like fundamental programming skills, the SDLC skills. Agile is also the new norm. Everybody has to work in an agile environment. I think process is key, as well as the DevOps part of it. So combining that, we would do like first as a fundamental round, and then do like a more detailed round. Give them scenarios, give them context based, like how did you solve this kind of a performance problem. Or you just sometimes you ask out of the questions like, hey, what do you don't like about Java? Like everybody will say, I like about this, but what do you don't like about Java? So things like that will make them think, and then we go into the final rounds, and we make sure that technically the candidate is capable, and then can also contribute in a team environment, and can take us to the future, because some candidates are not very adaptive to new technologies. Like if somebody has worked on the mainframe, then they would want to work on the mainframe, and for them it's like a big change. So we also look at the attitude, as how quickly they can adapt, what is their learning, and how they spend time outside of the work, right? Like if somebody is really techie, or he's really interested, he would be knowing the new trends, what is happening in let's say mobile apps development, what's happening in the modern JavaScript development. So these kind of things are also interesting for me, especially when I talk to them. I try to find out how connected they are to what's going on in the current setup.
Right. So, Saqib, we would just move to you for this question. That since you're also a subject matter expert, so we would like to know from you as well, that what is your approach towards this?
So I think Mohan did touch base on a lot of technical piece of it, which is pretty much common these days for assessing anything. I think post-COVID, especially in a virtual environment, some of the traits we are seeing that are really going to drive is their personality trait, their interpersonal skills, because it's a very different approach to working in a office environment where you are collaborating with your business analyst or your architecture, or different teams, and it's a very different approach you need to take when you're working virtually. So some of the things, and softer skills is taking a lot of precedence. What type of ownership of work that person can take, right? And technical skills, I'm not saying it's easy, but technical skills can be taught. But some of these personality traits are built over a period of your lifetime, right? Like right from your schooling, your college, like these are certain characteristics that a person displays, right? You cannot build this over, like, okay, overnight, somebody will automatically start taking ownership. If that person was careless and in his approach and everything, all of a sudden tomorrow he will not going to start taking that extra level of ownership. So we are seeing more and more increasingly that some of these qualities is going to truly be the differentiator between a top talent versus an ordinary talent, right? Somebody could be a really good, solid technical guy, but if they are not able to collaborate, work in an environment in this virtual world, then they will be a misfit in a lot of companies, I can tell you. Similarly, also, we are seeing that, increasingly what these tech tools have done is, right, earlier you have to coordinate various interviews with multiple level of hiring managers, check their availability. Because of these video tools and AI tools, right, it has enabled a candidate to take an interview at any time of the day, right? They could be working from 8 to 5:30, and then they can be free in the evening, take those tech assessments, take those video interviews. You can email it to the hiring manager whenever you want it. They can review it whenever they like. So it has given a lot of flexibility to hiring managers to really identify that top talent and among the pool of the talent, and also the speed and agility that it is providing to make sure that, earlier it was all about there is a war for the top talent. Right now it's not just about the war, it's a race for the top talent, right? So the speed and agility is going to be the key, and all these tools are giving those hiring managers the tools to really identify the right talent, because in all said and done, the IT unemployment rate in US is still very, very low, right? Irrespective of whatever unemployment rates have gone up in past 9 months or so, the IT unemployment rate is still very low. So there is still a demand and supply gap, right? And it is increasingly important. How do you, complete that demand and supply gap, right? There are various things that companies are trying these days, like an early talent program, because you are not seeing those talent easily available. There are different immigration issues that everybody is facing, right? So how do you train that top talent? And even Mohan touched base something on that digital mindset and everything. There are various assessments out there to really assess, where that candidate is in his digital mindset journey, because it's very important. It's not necessary that somebody who is an engineer is only aligned with the digital mindset. There are people who are not probably engineers, but they are creative, they know how to really build stuff, and they can also fit very well in your digital environment. So it's very important for us to really look at the softer aspects along with everything that we will do to train them or technical assess them.
Rightly said. A quick follow-up from this, Saqib. Do you think that the technical assessment platforms that are available in the market, I'm sure you've gone and tested a plethora of them. So do you think that they ensure a quality of assessment which is like not compromising, and it definitely gives you the accuracy of skills that you are looking at for your clients out there?
I feel that technology is continuously evolving, and it is something that is going to improve as we get better in articulating our need. And if we are able to translate that properly into assessment of a candidate, then we can definitely bridge that gap, right? There are multiple tools out there, and each tool has its own pros and cons, right? But I think it depends whether you are doing mass hiring for one type of skill set or you are doing selective hiring, because the only challenge is you'll have to customize it every time for the need that you have. That is the biggest challenge you faced with these technical assessment tools. But to an extent, again, it can be a leading indicator. It is not the only indicator for your hiring process, right? So you cannot just blindly rely on that tool and think that this is going to be answer and solving all your problems. It is very important that there is a structured interview process that a hiring manager is still having, because a lot of times we have seen that there is a lot of unstructured interviews that take place, right? So it's very important that that hiring manager is asking the same set of questions to say different candidates, because that way you can easily remove that bias, hiring bias that Jagat talked about as well, right? An example I can say, as Jagat mentioned, that it's all about what you have seen and the you have experienced. Like, for example, I'll give you, if you have never seen a male kindergarten teacher, right, you will tend to always associate and hire a female teacher, right? But those are some of the unconscious bias that exist even in hiring managers' mind, right? And it is important to first of all be understanding of what biases exist, and then you can automatically remove it through that structured interview process where you are going to rate them on what are the areas that you are going to assess them. So to answer your question in a nutshell, technical assessment is a good leading indicator, but that cannot be the only indicator.
Great. Actually, just this brings down to to me to ask Jagat that Jagat, how are the core skills in the market are being tested, and what are the kind of assessments that are being done? We would like to know this from you.
Yeah, so Sukriti, the core skills which are being tested, they remain the same. How they are being done, that is differing. So when you look at freshers, what are the core skills which are being evaluated? Problem solving, aptitude, demonstrated learnability. So these are essentially the three things. The platforms help you do that. When you're looking at freshers, as Mohan alluded to, if you're hiring a Java developer, you're going to test them on their core Java skills first, and then maybe depths of a Spring Boot or any other framework. Uh, Pre-COVID, the framework bit was being done on a one-to-one interview because most of the platforms did not support it. Now that we were in a COVID scenario, there was a demand for testing many of these skills on the platform itself. Can we give a Spring Boot project, a small Spring Boot project to someone? They build an application, and that is then evaluated by someone, by an evaluator. And can we have a conversation around what has been built? Can the person explain his approach to what has been built? So those kind of platform enablement are things that we have seen happening not just on SpeedHire but across the industry, because there was a need in the market for that. The one-to-one interview focuses on people's approach. So you might have solved a coding problem. There are different dimensions to even the coding problem. Have you solved it using an algorithm which is not very optimized, versus have you optimized the code, versus have you written the code in a way that it is maintainable? So these are different dimensions which are also looked at when you're evaluating someone on the core coding skills. But the way the platform has the platform need has evolved is the coding bit and the domain testing bit was already there with the MCQs and coding, but the scenario based assessments are something which we have seen getting enabled on the platform because there was a demand in the market for that. And that is then followed up by a one-to-one interview through a platform in which people have to explain their approach for how they solved a particular coding problem or how did they build that app. So many of these frameworks are being enabled on the platform. People are using the platforms to do many of these assessments, and then there are having conversations on how people have approached a certain problem. It's not just about doing the core skill evaluation on the platform and then doing everything else offline. So a lot of what was happening offline has been pushed to the platform. People are comfortable using those and then doing the discussions in the interviews and taking it forward.
Right. So now I will move to Vipul. Vipul, I have a question for you. That is, when it comes to evaluating the accuracy of candidates' performance, do you just look at the test scores, or you have other qualitative parameters, of technical assessments such as memory consumption, code length, time taken, etc.?
Okay. Again, I'll split it into two parts, right? One is the technical aspect of it. Yes, as part of the execution of the use case, as I said, we have the MCQ, we have the coding round, but at the use case or the project that they are doing has to take care of the memory consumption, has to take care of number. If I have to run it in a low CPU, low latency server, would it do the same performance responses as required? So we do have those checks as part of our use case execution cycles, right? That is for sure an aspect. The other aspect of the code which we look at is also the best practices. So in our platform, we already have those best practices code code reviews, right? So we have sort of automated that in our platform, which a lot of goes through the codes and sees whether they have used the right naming conventions, have they did the right intentions, have they kept a variable which they never used, or have they overused few variables. So there are some best practices checks also which are part of our playground process, right? So that's the best practices aspect is very important. Then the non-functional requirement, that's what I think you are alluding to, is very important when you're doing the check. I also want to touch on what Jagat was saying, right? MCQ and coding is not enough. You need to have a use case challenge. You need to run them through a project mindset. And that's when what even Mohan was pointing out, you will know whether this person can work in a real life world, right? Gone are the days where you expect them to write 4 lines of code and say, yes, those 4 lines are good. We need to see if how they are able to take it to the production. And very important aspect of all of this in COVID is um, the learnability aspect of it. In fact, I won't say learnability, it's a self-learnability aspect of the individual becomes very important. I'll tell you a simple example and the reason behind it. In a pre-COVID era, when we were used to being in an office where there used to be people around, and if someone is stuck in something, yes, they would Google Stack Overflow, but the easier approach for them was to tap on the shoulder of his a friend sitting and saying, hey, this is not working, what should I do? And the person would quickly give him or her a solution. That is not available today, right? That experience of an individual has sort of been wiped off. Yes, you can still ping someone over the chat and ask, but then that person is not available to you at that time. Now, in this scenario, the self-learnability skill set of an individual becomes paramount, right? How do I learn on my own? How do I tap into the resources of the internet or the resources of the company and their confluence pages or experts in the industry? How do I tap into those areas and self-learn, and then maybe I will have someone who can reconfirm my understanding, right? We are shifting from learning from my colleague to reconfirming from my colleague in this COVID situation. So I did answer your question on the first part, Sukriti, but I wanted to touch on the self-learning part as part of the COVID angle, and that is one key aspect or a assessment we do as we try to hire anyone in this era now.
And Sukriti, piggybacking
So,
on what
Vipul,
said, there are tools out there. There are tools out there that can really evaluate their behavior, personality traits, like the self-learning ability that he talked about. There are cognitive tests out there which can really help you judge whether this candidate and nobody can fool that test easily, right? If you are not a self-learner, then it will be automatically be visible when you take that test. So that is why some of these technology tools become so relevant and important in this age and world. Because you can't just go and ask this candidate to question to this candidate that, hey, are you a self-learner? Or how will you depict that person is a self-learner or not?
Very true.
Right, but Sakib, I want to know this from you and Vipul both, that maybe I believe and I assume that this is very much relevant and would cater to maybe when we are talking about hiring 10, 15, or maybe a hiring which is like a smaller unit. But what about when it comes to bulk hiring? When people opt out for bulk hiring, maybe into the organization or into the IT industry which does that. So how do you think that this is like very much relevant when it comes to hiring a lot of people altogether?
See, again, if I understand the question, you're saying in the bulk hiring, how do you still take care of all these things? Is that
exactly because
right? Yeah.
yes, because what you talked about was on individual levels, right? Creating that ecosystem where a person is comfortable, a person is giving his best to learn, and since we have all of you have those mentor paths also, so I would like to understand that what is your approach for when you hire so many people at the same time?
So actually, we don't do anything different, right? Some of the use cases of our India hiring, we have hired in a given day almost 30 offers just by following this approach, right? It's about how do you multi process things, how do you parallelize these processes, right? How do you bring in people, how do you have 50 laptops ready? Again, in US, we don't do this level of bulk hiring where we have to hire 30 people in a day. It's 3 or 4 in a day is really a good pick for an US market for us. But in Indian market where you're hiring, like you're looking at hundreds of people to be hired in a month, and also we have done this exact same process, MCQ coding, coaches being there, coaches being assigned 4 or 5 engineers, They sort of, if you know the chess game where there's a master a chess person and he like plays 10 people chess. Similarly, a coach is there who is coaching 10 people there, right? Again, the coach is not sitting and telling the person what to do. The coach is telling them or nudging them, saying, did you think of this? Did you think of this variable might hit your memory management? That inducing and then knowing whether the person is able to self-learn. Digital era, we are still able to do that. Now it's much more easier because I have 10 screens, I have 10 engineers solving my problem. As a coach, I'm monitoring all 10 of them and I'm also looking at their code at the same time. So the scale is not a challenge if you have the platforms right? If you're and again, at the end of the funnel is going to be tricky. The bottleneck hits when you're at the last stage, and that is going to be tricky. There is a human intervention required from my point of view. You cannot take away the human aspect of any of these things, which Sakib already touched, right? There are products, but at the end of it, there has to be a human connect, which also reinforces what the systems have told.
In fact, Sukriti, I can say that, in fact, mass hiring can in fact be, you can really speeden up the process using these tools, if you look at it, right? In fact,
Right.
a lot of companies are now they're going blind for a resume review process where they can remove the demographics, name, so that there is no unconscious bias towards the candidate. And then there are various tools through which you can, hack a rank and rank those candidates based on, what experience they have and their profile and everything. So those tools can help you easily shortlist maybe 100 candidates from a pile of 1,000 candidates, right? And then some of these tools which are flexible, where a candidate can take a video interview or do a coding assessment. In fact, this can really help hire you candidates in masses versus for you to really interview 200 candidates and then shortlist another 100 and then they make them go through another round of interview. You will end up wasting so much of your manpower to really do the hiring process, versus these technology tools can really speeden up and enable you.
Rightly said, Sagib, and I am sure that we have been constantly working upon innovating these technologies to cater to the requirements that are in the market and what our clients or maybe the IT market is actually looking at when they want to hire certain people for certain profiles, for that matter. So I would like to now know that how do you plan to strategically move ahead with the technical hiring process, and what are the kind of innovations that all of you are looking at? So, Jagat, we would like to start from you.
So, Sukriti, as I've said earlier, what COVID has done is it has accelerated the innovation process in the HR tech space. And a lot of it is demand driven because there is a certain need in the market. People are looking for certain kind of tools to be addressing those needs. Now there are different aspects to it. One is how do we do assessments at scale. The second aspect is how do we maintain integrity of those assessments. So these are the two dimensions in which we are going to see innovation. If we look at the first one, when you're doing assessments, people would want those assessments to make their life easier, right? So when you're doing a coding assessment, you get a certain score that this person has got 80 out of 100 is better than someone who scored 50 out of 100. That is one part to it. The other part, as Sakib had alluded to, was is the code optimized? And also Vipul also touched on it. Is the code written in a way that it follows good coding practices? So those are the different dimensions. So there's a quantitative dimension to it. You get a score which helps you decide and stack rank people on the basis of the score. Then there's a qualitative aspect to it that are important because you want certain kind of people to come into your company. And the same thing is happening happening across things. Like if I take the case of say Spring Boot. So currently what I'm constrained to do is give people a Spring Boot project. They'll do the project, but you'd still need a person to evaluate that project. Can we automate part of the evaluation and give a score to it? Give some kind of quantitative score to it, some kind of functional testing which will tell, okay, this is an application which is functionally working. A person might still need to evaluate it. So those are the kind of innovations that I see happening because of COVID. Many of it has already happened So when we look at SpeedHire as a platform, we support things like Spring Boot, React, uh, uh, and many of these frameworks. So the architecture is ready. Any of these frameworks can be fit in, and then we can give people some kind of sandbox in which they can come build the application that could those then be evaluated. The next bit will be, how do we give a quantitative score to what the application which has been built. It could be something like an Android app. You do a functional testing, you come up with a score, so that when 1,000 people have gone through the test, you have a filtered list of 100 people that you want to look at. Then the next bit will be whether the code which was written can be run it through some kind of qualitative analysis, which will add to the matrices that we have, the quantitative matrices that we have. So those are the different layers that we will be seeing going forward. And a lot of it is driven by, because people are working from home, because people are looking to scale up their hiring processes, and they would want to focus their time on things which are important. So if I am speaking to 10 people and I'm dedicating my time to evaluating those 10 people, then they better be the best 10 people. I don't want to look at 100 people and then cut down to 10 people. That's a waste of a lot of resources. So there's a demand in the market for innovation in that space to make life easier for everyone. And as Sakib alluded to, these are these would remain decision support tools for a really long time. They'll give you data points, they'll give you all kinds of matrices which will help you take the decision, but you'd still need a person to be looking at those data points and taking that decision. We are still years away from a stage in which you'd get a score and then you say, okay, this is someone I can roll out an offer letter to. We'll get there, but not in the near future.
Right. So I believe that, for qualitative analysis, somewhere or the other, we still believe onto the human touch that we always had as human beings. Mohan, I would like to move to you, and I would like to know that what are your plans in terms of strategizing things in future for ATCS?
So we are looking at some of the tools, some of the industry best tools, and we are trying to onboard those tools to essentially break it down to cognitive tests, like checking the aptitude, checking the number sense, checking even language sense, right? Because communication is the key in this remote COVID scenario, where people are able to communicate quickly, respond to a question in a paragraph. So that's one aspect to it, and the second aspect is obviously the technical aspect, and it will still need manual intervention. But I think that is one space where we are going to look into more of these tools and try to get going in that area. I think the second most important thing is to make sure that we have KPIs for the whole hiring process. Previously we used to talk to people, they used to come, we interview and take 2 days. So with this COVID and everything virtual, one person can take 5 interviews in a day, which was not happening before. So if you are delayed in writing an email, let's say, let me do it tomorrow, and that candidate might go tonight. So I think we are going to add KPIs to evaluate each and every step in the process, right from the time the requirement was put out, the candidates applied. So this way we can improve our own performance, our HR team's performance, just to see how we are reacting to the recruitment process, and that will definitely help us not to miss out on any. And everybody wants quick communication now, right? As they want to know sooner. Hey, what's next? So we have to and we are continuously trying to improve that, and that's where we want to go. And apart from that process, and also improving the quality, once the employee once the candidate becomes our employee, we are going to make sure that the employee is engaged at all levels. He gets the right training. He is happy with what he's doing. He's learning what he wanted to learn, and he has a good work-life balance. So this way we are going to invest more on the employee and their trainings as well, where then that could help get us more referrals and improve the quality in general on the whole process itself. And also the next step is we will try to also do, open more on the internal transfers and things like that, which will help, pivot. If somebody is not happy with this role, he can go to some other role. And so this way the talent is still retained, and because talent retention is also the most important thing, not just recruitment, right? So there are aspects to that, but essentially, tracking down to a right tool, and then building KPIs to manage the whole recruitment process is what we are looking at ADCS.
Interesting, Mohan. And I believe that, with technology advancing every single day, 5 years down the lane, you never know what all tools we'll be talking about and how innovation would actually address our requirements in the near future. Vipul, I would like to know from you about, what strategies do you have at Ultimetric to look for, and how do you plan to move ahead?
Sure. So one thing which COVID has brought in is that people are able to work from any part of the world, right? We are no longer talking even about city, right? As far as the engineer can align with the team's time zone or times, doesn't matter where the engineer is working in, which brings in from a strategic angle a very important point. At least that's directionally where we are going, is no longer Silicon Valley is the few 100 miles on the West Coast, right? No longer the banking sector is banking technology domain is the few 100 miles around the New York City, right? This COVID has literally told that you may even have someone working out of a remote city in Arkansas or Mississippi for a major project which is happening in Silicon Valley, and you're not expecting them to travel, and that opens up doors and skill sets and engineers which were untapped before, right? There are many people who used to sit in these remote cities working for the local companies and what did not take the they're not brave enough to move into those major cities because of various reasons, right? Cost, lifestyle, a lot of things. Now we are literally opening up the doors for everyone. You are not, doesn't matter which place you are sitting in, as far as you have an internet connection, you are good at what you are doing, you are part of the big system now, right? That shift is something which we have already started tapping in fact, because of this change, we were able to fulfill a lot of requirements that we had in Silicon Valley, which was not very easy before, right? So strategically, we are looking at a global workforce. In fact, if I have to talk about my India hiring, we are in fact shut down a couple of our offices because we know no longer that we're going to have those engineers walk into an office, right? A very simple use case for India compared to similar to US is like Nagpur is something which we can now open a 10-member office if we need to. We don't need to have them travel to Pune. We don't need to have them travel to Bombay. We can still have someone working out of Nagpur or the remote locations of India, right? As far as they have the connectivity. So strategically, that's a big change for us, and that's something that I think everyone is going to adopt, and many of people have started adopting it already. From something which again Jagat also brought in, one of the other things which we want to also do is or we are already doing partially, is how do we look at what we have done, look at the reports, look at the KPIs, look at the numbers that we have, and then start using algorithms to sort of predict some of those things, right? So that's another area of focus that we are doing. I don't remember the second part of the question, but I think I've taken care of the first part. If you can remind me the second part of the question.
Sure. So it was just about how do you plan to move ahead further with the processes that you're placing and streamlining?
Sure. So in terms of, so first part I already told, we have started working on it because that's something that we are doing. Second part is where we have already working on a fungibility matrix, or if I have to say competency score, which has technical, non-technical, a lot of other parameters, which sort of brings down the bias. But said this, I want to also put a word of caution to people who are listening, right? All the ML algorithms that has been written, right, has been written on existing world data, right? If an algorithm if a model is running, it's running based on a training data set which it has picked from real world, which unfortunately is already biased, which means your outcome of the ML algorithm tends to be biased also, right? So we need to be very, very careful in picking up those algorithms. And even if post algorithm, like everyone has been telling about this, that is not the end of this. That's just the beginning. Then there has to be a human intervention to revalidate what has happened, right? And this is very important because we sometimes think ML is going to take away bias, but let's be clear that it has learned how to do its processing based on already a biased data.
Right, right. A very insightful thing, I should say, Vipul. Thank you so much for sharing that. Sakib, we would just quickly, have some remarks from you, and what are your strategies when it comes to your organization?
Sure. As I mentioned, I think pre-COVID, there was already a certain level of technological transformation happening, and we were adopting some of those strategies in our day-to-day work. I think post-COVID, it has only accelerated it. Typically, if you look at recruiter who was talking to a particular candidate and identifying the right talent and sending it to the hiring manager, it was a very admin and a very monotonous task. So how can automation and AI tools help you stack rank the candidate? And the job of the recruiter then becomes less salesy, and it is more, they have to become more aligned with the business, and the business acumen comes in the picture. That's where it is very important for us as a company, and a larger, companies that are having larger talent acquisition engines, is that team should know what the business wants, and it is very important for them to understand the nitty-gritty of technology, and that's where the learning and development becomes key. I think a lot of times our leaders, they tend to underestimate the appetite our people have for learning, and post COVID we have only seen that people have a strong desire for learning, and they want to learn a lot of new things. And I think that can accelerate the path towards all this technology innovation that is happening. I think Vipul touched based a very important point, that a lot of these AI ML algorithms can be biased because eventually humans have trained them. So the bias comes from human, right? So it is very important that we just don't rely on one set of tools. The only thing I can see now in moving forward future is a CV or a resume could probably become redundant. I know there are certain laws that people don't want to discriminate by looking at a video and judging a certain candidate, but in technology space I think that bias is slowly and steadily getting reduced as much as possible. In certain industries outside of technology, those biases could exist, but in technology space I think those biases are consciously or unconsciously getting removed. And if these video tools can be used to evaluate a candidate quickly and then you interview them, I think a lot of times, I don't know, and it can be a bold forecast, but I'm sure the art of writing a resume and submitting and a hiring manager reviewing it could become a thing of past very soon. So that is how we foresee a lot of things. Obviously, on-demand staffing, gig work, I think Vipul touched based on that you could be in any part of the world and you could really do the job. I think that is something that will take a lot of prominence in the future as well. And I think that is how we are building ourselves to make sure that we are able to kind of adapt to this changing landscape.
Right, Sakib, and yes, Vipul, you wanted to add something?
No, I was just saying, on a lighter note, Sakib, you just gave a product backlog idea for Jagat. Sorry.
Okay, so to summarize of the conversation that we just had, that innovation, technology, with the speed that we are moving towards, it has enabled us to look for talent beyond boundaries, and look for projects and people who could just make things possible for us, uh, you know going beyond our offices, office premises. And also, it's the most interesting part is that we are virtually building relationships now, not in organically, but virtually building relationships, which is again, I think, innovation in its part. It has been an absolute pleasure, talking to all of you, and thank you for sharing your knowledge and experience with us and the trends of the market with us. Before we conclude the session today, let us have a look at the demo video of SpeedHire to understand how it's aiding the technical recruitment processes for several organizations till date. So now it's time for me to actually have closing remarks from all of you. Sakib, we'd like to begin from you.
No, thank you, Sukriti. It was a pleasure to be part of this roundtable discussion, and I think a lot of learnings from industry leaders and stalwarts like Vipul and Mohan. And as I mentioned at the start as well, I think we have seen a lot of technological advancement already happened pre-COVID. So I think the world was already preparing for this because there was so much of digital transformation that was happening, and this industry cannot be obviously completely aloof to what is happening. So there was a lot of bias towards the way you hire, the way you identify the right talent, and there was a lot of inefficiency in that process. And what technology has done is it has definitely brought some sort of level playing field to a lot of candidates, and also helped organizations. There are a lot of organizations which are targeting diversity goals. They want to make sure that they are fair, they are an equal opportunity employer. And I think these technology tools have only enabled some of these things. So I can only see that obviously, now we are completely remote and virtual. This will only go to the next level. The skills that will be in demand obviously will continue to be there, and I'm sure it will only progress forward. But I think what is going to play a huge role is that entire process will become very streamlined and will remove a lot of manual inefficiency that existed, which probably a lot of times organization could not tap into the right talent because of that. And I only feel that now with these tools and technologies, organization will really identify the top talent in a very quicker time frame than they were doing previously.
Right. Mohan?
Again, thanks, Sukriti and team for a good discussion. Again, as Sakib said, there's a lot of learning and a lot of, especially the SpeedHire itself. The demo was great, and I think as we are going into COVID and remote, I think the more focus I think AI is going to play a key role. I think AI based tools going forward, and again, there will still be manual intervention, but I think social behavior of a candidate can be captured by AI. And let's say if you have a pool or a data store of all the resumes which are, let's say, 2-year-old, then you don't know what is the latest technology that candidate is working on. So using AI, you could look at the resumes, and the AI can go to LinkedIn or any other social behavior of a candidate, what he's posting. Based on that, it can give feedback to the recruitment teams to say, what, this guy has advanced in his skill set. So I think that space is going to be progressing faster than I think we had thought. And IT and technology and is going to be there. Cloud modernization, all that is going to definitely progress forward. And I think it's going to be interesting to see next couple of years how things go move forward. How there will be different trends to do campus interviews and things like that. So looking forward for all of that. And again, thanks for the great discussion, and really thoughtful.
Thank you, Mohan. Thank you so much. Jagat, can we have a few words from you?
Thanks, Sukriti. It was an interesting discussion. I would like to thank Sakib, Mohan, and Vipul for bringing in their insights into the discussion. It was great learning for me. What we have seen is that COVID did accelerate the pace. Our product backlogs did get accelerated. So things that we were planning 6 months down the line, 1 year down the line, we had to do it now because people wanted it now. So interesting times for a person in product to be in the space. And I was pretty excited for what the future holds for us, pretty excited for what we are building and we are going to float out in the markets very soon. And it was a good discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jagat. I'm sure, all of us have a lot of opportunities, and COVID has partially, accelerated and given us that opportunity out there in the market. Vipul, we would like to have a few words from you.
Sure. So, first of all, thank you, Mohan, Sakib, and Jagat, for your great conversation, right? It's these conversations that take the industry to the next level. And some of the ideas that we discussed here, I'm sure are going to drive the industry, not only the organizations that we work in, but the whole industry. And thank you, Sukriti and your team, the whole Tech Gig and Times team for setting this up. From a closing note point of view, right? Yes, platforms are important, tools are important, automation is very important, even in the hiring cycle. And right, we need companies which were digitally aware and had adopted, had a speed breaker effect in the COVID, but they kept moving forward. Companies who were not prepared had to really accelerate, really get into the bandwagon of adopting these platforms at a rapid pace, and that did hurt some of the companies in this industry. So being aware and being cognizant of a digital platform and adopting it is very, very important. Said that, we also need to always, as I said, people first has been my success story, right? And we need to always wear this human hat and see, are we commoditizing the whole hiring process by bringing in a lot of automation? And that should not be the intent of it, right? As an organization, from Altimetric, be it any organization that I've worked with, for me, people are people. That's it. They are not a resource that we have started or we have used to calling them as, right? People are people who are bringing in their expertise, and the hiring process is actually a marriage that we are going to happen, which is going to happen between the company and the engineer. And yes, these platforms, tools, technology has to be a means to the end, but the end is going to be about the people, not about the platform. That's my closing comment. Thank you, Sukriti.
Thank you so much, Vipul, and I'm sure that human touch will still be valid and relevant even if technology takeovers all over the world in the coming years. So now I would like to invite Shikha Sahani, Head of International Sales, TechGig and SpeedHire from Times Internet for the vote of thanks.
Thanks so much, Sukriti, for the opportunity. And I would like to thank all the panelists and the wonderful audience that we have for a successful session today. It was very brilliantly articulated by Mohan, Sakib, Vipul, and Jagat. Thank you so much for your presence. While there were a lot of takeaways from this session for me, but the major one was that while the recruitment industry is moving towards automation and digitization, still, I think candidate experience still is very important for us. So I'm sure all of us are going to work towards that and make a wonderful candidate experience. Like me, there might be a lot of people who've taken a lot of insights. So thank you again for this session. Lastly, I would like to take the opportunity to reach out to all the panelists and the audience members for a quick SpeedHire demo in the future. And if in case you guys want to know anything about SpeedHire, you can get in touch with us at corporatecare@speedhire.com. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, Sukriti, and thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shikha. Thank you. Thank you, Jagat, Sakib, Mohan, and Vipul for, the precious and amazing cognition you have shared with us. You all are like actually gold mines of knowledge, I should say. And if you would like to use SpeedHire and understand the exceptional features it has, Shikha and Jagat would be more than happy to take you through it. And I would also like to thank all our live audience for gracing us with your presence. This is just the beginning of the roundtable discussions that we had. We are coming back with some more exciting India boardroom sessions on 1st and 8th December 2020, and the US boardroom sessions on 11th and 15th December 2020. Do stay tuned for more information. Thank you so much once again. Stay safe. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.